Good day. My name is John Michael Foster, and I'll be presenting on culture and the importance of culture to international businesses and international trade. Now, what is culture? Culture can be defined in many various ways. So, one person might say culture is their way of life. One person might say it is their beliefs. One person might say it has to do with religions. One person might say it's the values and the norms that they practice on a day to day basis. Now, all of those definitions, even though they are different or worded differently, they all can encapsulate essentially what culture is. And that is, well, usually I always go with it with a simple definition, which is the way of life of the society and how they go about whatever they're doing. So yeah, so all of those encapsulates what culture is. So why should international businesses take all of these what culture is into consideration and so on? So if culture affects the way people think. If one person thinks that culture is the way they live and is their beliefs and what they do daily, then obviously that will affect how they think, and consequently, that will affect the way or what they purchase. So, how they spend their money in the market and which businesses they purchase from, whether it matches their culture, whether it matches their preferences or anything like that. So I think because culture affects the way how people think, then it obviously will affect the way or what they buy or whatever they purchase or anything like that. So I think that is the reason why international businesses should take this into consideration. So it is a large section, so you can't look at culture in a vacuum and say, hey, culture is this, so we are just going to look at this. There's many different factors that affect culture, and is so wide. It is so wide that international businesses have to sometimes segregate and say, hey, we have to look at this individually or so. So some of the main points in culture or of culture that I think international businesses should take into consideration is the language of the people. So obviously that speaks for itself. So if a country that is based in Germany or wherever comes into Jamaica, they can't just impose their language on the Jamaicans. Nobody will understand. So you will have to appreciate the language of the Jamaicans living here and say, hey, we have to change this to fit the society and the people living there so that they may be adaptive to what we are offering. Yeah. The second one I think is religion, and I think religion is has to do a lot with what people do, with how they buy and spend their money. So for instance, some religions, so for instance, Christianity and the denomination of Seventh Day Adventists. So Adventists are said to not eat pork or anything like that. So just as an example. So I think given that example, and if for example the population is largely made up of those set of persons, then you'll have to factor that in and say, hey, we can't produce or offer those things to that country or to that set of people. So you have to tailor it. You'd have to be adaptive in that sense. Another thing is the superstitions of the people. And it might seem strange or it might seem silly, but it is very important. And you can look at it like this. And another example in Jamaica where men in Jamaica, it is in culture that men, we don't use like the little packets of black pepper because it can lead to you to be infertile. Yes, it is kind of funny, but those are the things that affect what people buy, what people purchase, and it might seem small, but as you go along, and the small numbers make up a large number over time, and international businesses will have to look at things like these and say, hey, we have to be adaptive because they cannot just come and say we're imposing our culture on you, and you have to buy this. They don't. They are the customers. So yes, I think those are the reasons why I think culture is important to international businesses, and they should take it into consideration whenever they are going into a new country, or any other place where the culture might be different from where they originally are from.